Hi folks, Tony Knight here, and we're going to be talking about something that no one is discussing right now, which is how come that we have so many dogs that are still badly behaved, even though there's a ton of classes and courses and books and e-books and DVDs out there teaching us about dog training. And most dog owners are desperate to know how to get it right. But first of all, let me introduce myself. I am a typical dog owner. In fact, here are my dynamic duo, Prue and Kes. But as well as being a typical dog owner, I've been a dog trainer for over 10 years now, and in that time I've travelled all over the world, met just about every dog breed imaginable, and more importantly, seen every piece of behaviour, some that you could not possibly imagine. And for the next few minutes I'm going to teach you about the 3 major barriers that we face when training our dogs, and help you get on the path to creating a better relationship with your dog. What I want you to be able to do at the end of this is take control of your current situation, whether that's dealing with your dog's non-stop barking, or stopping your dog from dragging you down on the end of the lead when you go out for a walk, or curbing your dog's aggression when it sees another dog, or any other problem you might be faced with. So why don't the popular training methods such as obedience classes or the vast array of e-books and DVDs get the results you're looking for? Are they wrong? Well, the problem is that everyone I've looked at is partial, which means that they're missing one aspect of dog training that you really need to know, and without this missing piece they can't hope to provide you with the whole picture. And you definitely need the whole picture to succeed with your dog training. What I'm going to do is give you a new way to think about your relationship with your dog, how it works, and throw some light on why we're not really set up to succeed with our training as it stands. I'm also going to expose some of the biggest obstacles to getting a well-trained dog that we absolutely need to get over before we can be successful. So let's dig straight in. The number one obstacle that we have is that we humanise dogs. We think they are like us, and then we treat them as if they are one of us. Now that just gives dogs really confusing messages that they don't understand. The truth is, we think dogs are like us because we share some of their instincts. For example, a dog will not avoid eye contact with another dog because that can be construed as a threat. Now, think about when you sense that someone you don't know is staring at you and you find they are. You start to feel uncomfortable. The adrenaline starts to go through your body, which explains that whole funny feeling in your stomach, because you know this is a predatory stare and you're going to look for a way out of there so you don't get eaten. Listen, I could give you many more examples of this, but the key is that while we share some of the dog's instincts, that does not mean that they are like us. A dog lives on its instincts, and its primary drivers are survival. They don't plan for the future, they don't worry about the past, and quite frankly, they don't understand our world either. So moving on, the number 2 barrier we experience is our emotions, especially guilt, and this is what gets in the way of us training our dogs well. Now, I don't mean that feeling guilt about punishing your dog is not a good thing. Our training program is as gentle and as positive as they come. And you should feel guilty if you're hurting your dog. It's just not necessary. Really, this problem is very closely linked to the first problem we identified, humanising our dogs. You see, our emotions, which include our love for our dogs as well as our guilt, stop us being able to do the things we need to get a well-behaved dog. For instance, one of the biggest objections I get to our training is when I teach owners that ignoring your dog, usually for only a couple of minutes, is essential for getting your dog to behave in a way that you want. Now in the wild, dogs do this quite naturally. The pack leader does this all the time as if to say, I'll pay attention to you when I choose, not when you choose, because I am in charge. It's a way of reinforcing their position in the pack. Now this behaviour doesn't upset the dog that's being ignored because it understands it. It makes sense to them. But when we think about ignoring our dog, we instantly think how we would hate to be ignored by someone we loved, so we struggle to do it. However, all we end up doing is giving our dog the wrong message and confusing it. This brings us on to barrier number 3, and this is something that I just don't hear talked about enough by trainers, and when they do, they seem to get the wrong end of the stick, although I know this is central to having a well-behaved dog. And that's leadership. If you don't take on being the leader of your pack, you cannot hope to have a well-behaved dog. Full stop. I have known dogs that have won every obedience contest they've ever entered, and yet to live with, they were a nightmare, regularly biting their owners and stealing food from the table. You see, while they were quite happy to please their owners with a few obedience tricks, they thought they were still in charge, and so they behaved like it. Assuming that they had first option on any food available, that's normal wolf behaviour. And telling off their subordinates with a quick nip when they did something the dog didn't like. Again, normal behaviour. The worst part is if you let your dog be the leader in a world it does not understand, that can cause so much stress for them. And it leads to other problems in behaviour, such as separation anxiety and aggression. But that's a conversation for another time. I've noticed that one of the reasons why dog owners don't want to take on the leadership is that they've been fed some negative connotations with that word. For instance, it's been associated with the need to dominate your dog or to be cruel to it. In fact, popular thinking today says you need to be able to roll your dog over and pin it down, which is ridiculous and not very practical. You may be able to pull it off with a Chihuahua, but what if you've got a huge Great Dane? Dominance is not necessary for leadership. With dogs, you show your leadership in a far more subtle and safer way. In fact, we've identified 4 areas where if you show leadership, your dog can accept you as the decision maker, can trust you, and finally start to relax. I have honestly seen dogs transformed when they've had the leadership role taken away from them. Recently I worked with someone who was advised by her vet to have her dog put down because there was no chance of curing the dog's aggressive behaviour, and it was a danger. And yet, when that owner mastered the 4 techniques that I've mentioned earlier, she literally saved her dog's life. Now, I know that I go on about leadership, but because it's really key to solving all sorts of your dog's behavioural problems, and you've probably not been told it enough. And you know, I also get people coming to me and telling me that they've tried everything else out there and they're feeling a complete failure about training their dog. But perhaps it's not really your fault, because it could be that you've just not really been given enough of the right information. Anyway, before I move on to talking about what you can do now that you know what the potential barriers are to training your dog, I want to recap quickly on the 3 main points that cause us problems. The first is believing that dogs are like humans rather than the other way around, which is the truth. The second is your emotions get in the way of using the right training techniques. And the third is not understanding the importance of leadership to your dog. I hope you can see now that we've got the wrong story about dogs. You know, we've been fed some myths, and it's affecting our ability to create a great relationship with them that's based on love and trust and mutual respect. Listen, you know, I don't like to keep hammering on this point, but we don't stand a chance of training our dogs well unless we rid ourselves of those 3 barriers. So, how do we do it? Well, after doing this for over 10 years, working with every conceivable type of dog and owner, I've discovered that these 2 things are the most crucial things, and they're absolutely true. So these are my 2 biggest recommendations of where to start. Leadership is the key to reprogramming your dog's behaviour, and treating the dog as a dog is the key to reprogram your own behaviour. So first, go out and find out more about good leadership. And remember, you can't force your dog to respect your leadership, so forget about using dominance, and forget about using those nasty gadgets that can shock them or scare them with loud jangly noises or limit their breathing. Secondly, stop treating your dog as a human and expecting them to behave, think or feel like a human. They won't love you any less or transfer their loyalty elsewhere if you do, and then you won't be surprised when they act like a dog. Dogs have a simple set of rules that are designed to help them survive, but survive in their own world, not ours. Now, one thing's for sure, just knowing what you know now is not enough to magically change things. You've got to take some action. So it's your choice. You could, of course you could do nothing, but then you can't expect anything to change. You could also do it yourself. Go and educate yourself in those different areas you need to get those into action. And there's a lot of information out there on the internet to help you. And you can visit my blog, where there's regular free advice and tips on dog training. Or you could ask me to help you and instantly get access to over 10 years of experience of working successfully training dogs. Whatever you decide to do, please do something with this knowledge. And in the long run, you'll be glad you did. And so will the dog that you adore. I wish you all the best with your dog training, and I hope to get to talk with you inside the Dog Listener Coaching Program. Take care. Thanks for listening.